Hello everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk now. In our previous Quant coverage, we outlined for you guys the Quant connection when it comes to CBDCs, and in particular, one being developed here, of course, in the United States. And if you haven't seen it, highly recommend you check it out. But how about this for size? The Quant connection for CBDC for France. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's Quant coverage. And I'm going to go ahead and full screen this. And if anything, all of us should be fully aware of the likes of BlackRock. So right as you see right here, you have CEO Larry Fink talking about distributed ledger and the future of tokenization and Web3 only about 2 weeks ago. And it states Quant fixes this. What are we referring to? Well, let's go ahead and play this particular clip. It's only about a minute and 25, and we'll come back for some commentary.
It wasn't a ledger that was open to the world. It was a closed ledger.
Right.
It was not distributed. So the whole foundation of what crypto is, it's supposed to be a distributed ledger that is across the system. I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in an ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem. You don't need trust banks.
But does that disrupt you eventually? Because you are custodying all of these assets.
No, we're not a custodian. We don't.
You know, it's funny to hear Larry Fink basically state that BlackRock isn't a custodian, because we all know for a fact that BlackRock is the world's largest asset custodian. So maybe he looks at it from a management side. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want that particular label, because let's face it, when it comes to just that, taxes, think about all this, right? Whether you're following the World Economic Forum and so on, they have stated time and time again, especially Klaus Schwab, you will own nothing and you'll like it. You'll be happy about it. Think about some of the language being shared here. Anyway, Quant fixes just that. Some of the particular comments that he mentions specifically about digital ledger technology. Think about the Quant connection in that regard. Now, a little bit more in regards to this with BlackRock. So he states that they are not an asset custodian, right? But in reality, they are, whether he wants the label or not. So look at all the different companies, for instance, owned by BlackRock. And again, I think there's even more. But I mean, some of the big ones, right? So Amazon, Microsoft, PayPal, Walmart, again, they own assets in this. Doesn't necessarily mean that they own these free and clear, but for him to state that they're not an asset custodian, then I don't know what you basically are. All right, what's the Quant connection? And if anything, think about this. Last summer, BlackRock got into crypto, right? Again, you got to connect the dots here. Now, this I want to show you before we kick it into the whole Quant connection. And again, part of our particular outline. So it says, powerful video of Quant being explained by Gilbert Verdian. This is why I think Quant is going to 100K eventually. You saw a previous video. I did make that particular prediction and so on. Some people got even higher than that, right? Like by 2030, $1 million coin, all those type of things and so on. Shout out to this person, BSR, which is buy, sell, repeat, at buy, sell, repeat _ I'm going to play this. And also, I like the idea that Gilbert Verdian is talking to, for instance, a big wig, if you will, from LCX. And I think, if anything, LCX will be another one that is going to surprise quite a few people because of the element they bring to the table when it comes to being an exchange. This is a minute and 15 seconds, and then we'll come right back.
Is in the background bringing enterprise and institutional use cases to the network. We have lots and lots of meetings every week with governments, with enterprise, with institutions, with clients who want to build new technology and new multi what we call MDApps, so multi DLT distributed applications on top of the network. So the QNT token is at the core of everything that we're doing. And what happens is if you own gateways and you run this on the network, when you process transactions, you get paid in QNT. It's a great ecosystem that we're building, and this will evolve. You know, we want to make it the currency and the payment option for all the data and the transactions that are being put on the network, so people can actually trade in QNT, and it can be used for hundreds and hundreds of use cases around, AI, data. If you want to do an MDAP on payments, if you want to do an MDAP as an exchange, if you want to do anything, computes, if you want to create like an AWS equivalent on the Overledger network, all of this is possible. So QNT has just become that, pure utility token that can be used for everything.
That was the main thing I wanted to share with you guys. A pure utility token that can be used for everything. Think about the message, the power of that. And it's not just having a message with nothing to back it up, right? They do back it up with full interoperability at scale that nobody else is doing. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for, this particular article from FinExtra states Banque de France, HSBC, IBM test interoperability of wholesale Cbdc. On our previous video for Quant, we talked specifically about that. And I do apologize if you hear background noises on. You got to keep in mind, my girlfriend is actually working from home. But check this out for yourself. Following the experiments demonstrating that DLT can be used with existing networks to complete Cbdc financial transactions in real time, Banque de France, HSBC, and IBM have published a paper exploring their key findings. Around the world, central banks are considering the viability of their own digital currency. And you see this happening literally like almost week after week now. If anything, on top of that, at least on average, month after month, from the end of, I would say, last summer to present, right? So it says further, the efficiency and security that CBDC affords could bolster payments in developed countries, and if anything, promote financial inclusion in emerging markets. Ahead of the Banque de France CBDC experiments, HSBC launched its digital vault service, which can hold securities and process manage delivery versus payment, which is DVP, and payment versus payment PVP settlements. HSBC also uses blockchain for its FX Everywhere service, a DLT solution for the netting and settlement of FX transactions and payments. Listen to this. Back in May of 2020, HSBC partnered with IBM to propose a series of experiments for the Banque de France, wholesale CBDC program. While previous trials and tests had shown how CBDC, digital securities, or FX could work on DLT, this experiment covered the full end-to-end transactional lifestyle and was conducted in a hybrid cloud environment of public and private clouds using on-premises data sources. Now, there's a little bit more in regards to this. I know it seems like a lot of it's verbatim, but again, it's going to pound home the connection. I promise you. It states in a statement, HSBC says, quote, the success of this experiment is a milestone in showing interoperability across different DLTs and technologies and how CBDCs could save time, reduce market risk, and improve just that security for transactions between central banks, commercial banks, and clients all over the world. For a fictional customer name, for instance, for this example, Starmint, which has local manufacturing capabilities but international consumers, HSBC, IBM, and the central bank took 4 months to set up a testing environment for this use case. Okay, that's apparently why they just used some random name like that. Now, it states specifically the 3 scenarios that were selected to test the capabilities and benefits of a wholesale CBDC implementation were as follows: issuance and distribution of CBDC denominated debt instruments, initiation of bond subscriptions in primary market, and settlement of trades in the secondary market, followed, of course, by coupon payment, execution of cross-border, cross-currency, cross-technology, DLT and non-DLT, and cross-network payments. And states all 3 scenarios were combined into a single experiment as a proof of concept, successfully executed in a highly complex environment, which included multiple ledgers, technology stacks, and of course control frameworks. Even though Banque de France and HSBC run separate DLT infrastructures, they can be connected via bridging software that enables interoperable transactions and cross-network DLT consistency. Distributed ledgers, I should say, based on Hyperledger Fabric and, like we've always mentioned before, R3's Corda were also integrated using the Weaver interoperability tool. HSBC then, of course, took ownership of the E-bond to then transfer some of it to Starment under its custody issue Starment, its coupon payment in triple X currency. No, not the one you may be thinking of. And then execute an FX hedge transaction for Euro/XXX. The statement continues, quote, the success of the experiment is a significant achievement. Not only does it show how CBDC and DLT can be useful to businesses in the real world that resemble the fictitious business Starment, it also showcased partnership and collaboration between banks, commercial banks, and technology providers. Not only does it show how CBDC and DLT can be useful to businesses in the real world that resemble the fictitious business Starment, but it also showcased partnership and collaboration between central banks, commercial banks, and technology providers in a challenging time frame. Now, there's this particular quote before we wrap up this particular article states, quote, experiments like these will provide the framework that allows central banks all over the world to confidentially issue CBDCs, something that we at HSBC anticipate is likely to happen within the next 15 years. The most likely solution at the moment is that they will be indirect, with the CBDCs being distributed via commercial banks like HSBC. This makes it all the more important for commercial banks to be part of designing and testing these new currencies. End quote. Now, I want to go over to this, for instance, to really pound it home, if you will, in regards to the Quant connection. So, I wanted, of course, to blow this up as much as I could, but when I went from one part of like 150% to 175, I think it was, or 200. It just didn't fit right. So I do apologize for not getting it that much bigger. But this article is straight from the source, it's straight from Quant. So this was back in March of 2022, right? This year. It says global markets and the coming revolution in cross-border settlement. Now check this out. So specifically, it says in the Digital Pound Foundation's recent webinar on central bank digital currencies, aka CBDCs, settlement across borders, Gilbert Verdi explained the need for interoperability and standardization. Now, of course, he goes and does this particular outline and so on. But the main focus I want you guys to see right here, for instance, is the success of specifically this particular project called Project Jura. I'm not even probably pronouncing that right, but anyway, that's the connection I want you guys to see here. So, for instance, you have this whole outline. It mentions specifically the representatives that attended this and so on. You have, for instance, it mentions you have representatives from digital assets, custody and CBDC lead, and global MD of blockchain and multi-party systems, and Dr. Osman Jacques Mendang, I can't even pronounce that right, senior advisor, blockchain and multi-party systems, kicked off, of course, the discussion with Project Jura, this blockchain initiative between the Banque for International Settlements. You're always hearing, for instance, Coach JV specifically mention that quite a bit, right? Also, Cryptolulu, you get the gist. But check this out. For instance, Banque de France and Swiss National Bank. And if anything, look at this quote on the right side. There is enormous opportunity to transform the financial sector, create standards, and work together. Gilbert Verdian already understood the opportunity a long time ago. And if anything, when we see the talk about wholesale CBDCs specifically, whether it's the one that happened, for instance, not that long ago with the whole, thing of the United States coming on board, if you will, when everybody else thought that they weren't. I was one of them, let's be honest. And of course, now you're seeing this whole thing with the, Banque de France, as I would say. You have drawn the conclusion, at least I am, that there definitely is the connection. How do we know that? We base it on what has happened in the past. You might not just say blatantly, yeah, this is a CBC that, Quant is doing with, for instance, the Bank of France, but you actually seen some interviews where he specifically mentions, we covered this actually in the past. I wish I had that particular clip. You guys have seen it if you've been following us at Crypto Talk now for a while, that Quant connection. There's a specific clip, and I'll have to pull it up in the future. I have to really dig deep for that particular one. But a while back, Gilbert Verdian basically mentions that you had a particular executive from the Banque of France, Banque de France means the same thing, reach out to Quant saying basically, we already realize what you guys bring to the table. We want to work with you. Remember what Gilbert's response was? Gilbert's response in that particular interview was, yeah, we'd be more than glad to work with you guys. In fact, we'll make it so you guys only have to do, or we only have to do about 3 lines of code. And if anything, focus on what you normally do. And that's the beauty of our interoperability. It's not them basically jumping through all the hoops. Remember when you mentioned that before? If you're new to us and so on, check it out. It is a while back, but there it is. This has been going on for a while, right? I mean, literally, this was published back, like I mentioned, March of 2022. You already have that established connection. And so you guys can view this particular article if you want. It is straight from the Quant site. And if anything, we do your search, just type in global markets or type in, the full thing. You just copy and paste this basically. It does a full in-depth outline where it talks about some of these. I mean, how about this as well, right? The CBD design with greater aim does a little bit more in that regard as far as the outline and basically mentioning just that, like how there's an enormous opportunity to transform the financial sector, create standards, and work together. Quant is doing that at scale that nobody else is doing. All right, a little bit more in regards to our particular coverage. I saw this and I thought I'm gonna give a chance for somebody else to have, I guess you could say, a highlight on our highlight reel Quant, because let's face it, we do that a lot. So it says understand it's agnostic to generalize as a DLN, distributed ledger networks, right? So earlier we heard, for instance, Larry Fink talk about DLT, right? Well, it's a lot more than just DLT. It's, if anything, it's some of these particular networks. So overledger gateways enable multiple levels of interoperability that nothing else provides to connect multiple ecosystems. Hence why I believe that Quant is a monopoly. Recently in our comments, it got brought up, and shout out to the person that mentioned it. I forgot specifically who it was, but you know who you are. And that is, does Quant have any real competition? My answer is not currently. I think somebody else brought up the whole idea of, maybe it was the same guy, but anyway, brought up the whole idea that it's Chainlink, but not to the scale that Quant is offering, right? And I'm not dismissing Chainlink. I honestly think it might be a good one to have part of your portfolio, not financial advice, but check out some of this. So when we zoom in further, right, it talks about, for instance, or circled, I should say, highlighted. right? The bridge to cross-border payments and so on. So it says the example we just outlined involves one particular use case, swapping loyalty tokens between Oracle blockchain platform and Ethereum, as well as tokens and digital assets exchanges. Overledger's ability to transfer data and assets to other DLNs, right, distributed ledger networks, says read blockchain data using standardized API and data models, write blockchain transactions using generic prep and execute process, as well as subscribe to blockchain related events can be used to support endless possibilities. Some examples include, and of course, look at the main highlight, complex business processes, orchestrations, and so on. Think about this specifically, like we mentioned before, the Cbdc connection. A little bit more in regards to this. Combining interoperability categories. I love these particular, I guess you could say, uh, graphs, if you will. It's like, well, is it really a graph? You get what I'm saying. So it states specifically Quant in the middle. You have, for instance, other multi-chain decentralized apps. And Quant literally does just that. It connects all of it. You see some of the ones at the bottom. Heck, there's a chain link right down there. Ethereum, XRP, Polkadot, Bitcoin. You know, even though Polkadot's at layer 0, still, it connects everything. Quant right in the middle of all of it. All right, a little bit more. It says Oracle fully understands these issues, which is why the partnerships work so well. Quant is now working in a highly collaborative manner with Oracle to roll out solutions on the Oracle blockchain platform for a variety of sectors. A key sector that we are engaged in is just that, financial services. Obviously, there are specific challenges that come with blockchain interoperability in finance, including identity mapping, privacy, security, data protection, and disintermediation, all of which Quant and Oracle are jointly working on. A little bit more. Check out this. So it says Table 2. Main differences between the three ISO TC307s, WG5, TS2, 3635 type of blockchain networks. And on the right side, for instance, you have the permission public one. So the right to join, open to everyone. Let's all check their history and state available for observers. Requires identification, authentication, and authorization. Governed by an underlying orchestration entity. Responsibilities and accountabilities can be established. All checked on those particular ones. And of course, you know, it's nice to see the comparing and contrasting on this because it gives you a little bit more knowledge to understand how this all works. All right. I do want to show you guys this, and you've probably seen it before. But again, you know, for the newcomers, Quant is literally in the middle of this. When we say that it is fully, you know, interoperable and, you know, connects everything, it really, really does. And to even see, for instance, some of these other ones are ISO 222, right? Like XDC, XRP, Stellar Lumens, Algorand, IOTA, Hedera's HBAR, and so on. But it's not just for the particular blockchains. You literally have, for instance, other big organizations, IBM, right? For instance, the connections to the Hyperledger fabric. You have, for instance, a Cbdc connection. Literally, this video is outlining some of this, right? And again, when you think about it, who is the one who is enabling all this to basically happen at scale that nobody else is doing? Like I mentioned, it's Quant. And if you know you haven't looked more into it, you got to. You owe it to yourself to do just that. I feel as though that Quant is our second chance at Bitcoin, right? And why am I stating that? Because I'm stating it because it's true. Quant is our second chance at Bitcoin. Think about when Bitcoin first came around. 2000, was it 2009, early 2010, when it started kind of really starting to take off, a lot more eyeballs on it. Bitcoin was roughly at $5, and then that big jump in 2013, for instance, to roughly $90 to $100. And of course, we'll get more into that as well. But I want to show you guys this. So there's this particular video, and it says who's holding Quant. And you know, some of you guys are of course already seen this, but if anything, I want to pound it home a little bit more because this guy does a good job of the particular DAG connection. But I will state this: In the video, he mentioned specifically how DEG is the only one that's like military grade. That's not actually true. Military grade blockchain, as we know, is XDC. We're going to play this. It's under 3 minutes, and then we'll come right back.
Like Apple's iOS, but this is iOS for the blockchain. I'm gonna say that again. This is like Apple's iOS system for the blockchain. Can you break it down for me a little bit more? Sure, I can. Here is Quant. Quant is a software, and their Overledger operating system talks to all of these things. You cannot run your life today or your business without one of these being a part of it. That is 100% fact. You cannot run your life today or your business without running into one of these payment APIs. Google Pay, Apple Pay, Amazon Pay, PayPal, Stripe, Samsung, Walmart, Venmo, Swift. I'm gonna double tap that one again. Swift. This runs that. Blockchains. That means layer ones, layer twos, and even layer zeros like Polkadot. Who's paying attention? Constellation DAG is right here. Y'all don't even know what Constellation DAG is. Let me remind you. Look what it is right here. Look. Constellation DAG, proof of reputable observation. Y'all don't know what that means. I'm going to break it down for you in layman's terms. Watch this. Pay attention. This one, by the way, because y'all like to read, like stuff like Perez, Hilton, and Bossip and Shade Room. I read stuff on NASDAQ, Fortune, and Forbes. Constellation Network to provide U.S. Air Force with blockchain security for data sharing. Oh my God. Anybody ever heard of the U.S. Air Force? They're using the Constellation DAG network to provide security for their data sharing, man. Are y'all, who's paying attention? Who's paying attention? This software right here talks to all of that stuff. It is the only, this right here, this is the only blockchain that has a relationship and a freaking contract with the U.S. government.
Not true, but I mean, I do appreciate this guy's passion. As we know, for instance, XDC and military grade blockchain, aka blockchain 4.0, and on top of that, let's face it, Quant, right? You have, for instance, that partnership with Oracle. We covered it a few Quant videos back, right? That big, for instance, Department of Defense contract with the Pentagon, literally, right? That $9 billion contract. Now, granted, there was about roughly 4 other companies, organizations that are part of that contract. But again, the Quant connection with Oracle is huge because they are, recognizing what Quant, if you will, brings to the table. Not Quant specifically, but again, that partnership was massive. And of course, if you haven't seen that particular video, I would highly recommend checking it out. And of course, I'll play the rest of this. Here we go.
Constellation DAG, which is right here. Interchain, enterprise blockchain, banking APIs. I just explained to you how JP Morgan is moving into the metaverse. They already have a virtual bank in the metaverse. They're now filing a trademark patent for crypto wallets. This banking API and all of these talk to Quant. Quant talks to all of Internet of Things. That means the APIs for those of you trying to create new technology. Hey Siri, okay.
All right. So, I saw that and I said to myself, you know what? I do appreciate this guy's passion. It might not be 100% right as far as some of those other statements about, military contracts and so on. But the outline was great, especially if you haven't seen that before. Now, let's get into the next part of this. And that is this right here. And you know what? Say what you want when it comes to Reddit. If it wasn't for Reddit, a lot of us wouldn't even know about the likes of, for instance, what happened with GameStop stock and so on, and how a passionate community came together and, let's face it, decided to pump that up something fierce. Didn't want to see it just go away, and it didn't. It's still around. I actually hold some GameStop stock. Of course, this is not that type of video for that. We don't cover stocks here at Crypto Talk Now, but nonetheless, I feel as though both Twitter and Reddit are great tools to have if you hold crypto and you want to get community-driven news instead of the negative narrative of just mainstream news. Mainstream news is not going to give you the constant updates that you need if you're really into crypto. So it states Quant versus Bitcoin, which one is the better store of value? And it says 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to see crypto YouTube vids with titles like this. Mark my words. I'm going to go with that as well. This was posted 9 months ago, but it still is true. It still holds water, it's hold weight, whatever you want to call it, to this day. Even though it's 9 months ago, it aged very well. So this person, Mia Des 20, says, I see somewhere between 20 and 2035 people ask, why hold Bitcoin when we can hold a decentralized scarce asset that actually does something and has a native return on total locked value? The only reason to hold Bitcoin is the belief that it will only go up as there's no native utility. Right. When all the world has bought in over the next 10 years, how could it keep going up? Someone will want to cash out. Right. Imagine all it will take is for one major country / institution to bet it might be safer to invest in a company providing the interoperable infrastructure for everything that gets you native interest on your holding, like a traditional dividend, than holding a completely speculative, unscalable asset. Quant is Bitcoin, but better. Again, kind of like the theme of the thumbnail that you guys have clicked on, right? Basically, Quant is our second chance at Bitcoin, but at scale that nobody else has done. And if anything, you have that interoperability, and then you have that true utility, unlike Bitcoin. Central banks around the world are already lessening their dollar reserves in an attempt to diversify and hedge against potential future sanction complications. So no way would they go all in on a volatile speculative asset. They'll do like what I imagine some quant people do, is have a little Bitcoin because for now it's a more universally recognized crypto asset. Right. Let's face it, when you have a conversation with a person that doesn't know about crypto, they might have heard of what? Bitcoin. Possibly they heard of Cbdc or something like that. But for the most part, people are like, oh, crypto? Oh, okay. I know a little bit about Bitcoin. And that's all they've heard of. It says, I don't care what the Bitcoin maxis say, same here, will never abandon every currency and only use Bitcoin for international exchange, as that is an impractical, delusional utopianism. It is. Think about it. The Bitcoin maxis want to state that Bitcoin is going to be the main method of payment. Are you kidding me? There's no way that's going to be a thing. If anything, it's too expensive, um, and on top of that, it's too slow. Right? You got to look at it from this particular uh, point of view that he or she, I don't know if it's he or she, but basically is outlined here, and of course we'll get into that. So it says, if there is ever a major crash of Bitcoin after institutional governmental adoption, it could be the first domino in the greatest pump and dump in history. And where better to end up than this scarce currency that powers the Web3? Now, this next part, to me, pounds it home 100%. Think about this. I'm always pointing out here at CTN, you have to reflect on history to have a broader understanding of the now and to prepare yourself for the future. So it says, I have a feeling Bitcoin and Ethereum are the Yahoo and AOL of the internet. Really important at the start and pave the way for adoption, but later on along the timeline, having much less of a role. That's exactly the way I look at Bitcoin currently. And I'm looking at the innovators that have rose from those times or made themselves, you know, change with the times to keep up with just that, the times. Perfect example, Amazon. They were, originally back in the late 90s, early 2000s, were just like an online bookstore. Look how that turned out, right? You got to look at Quant from the perspective of they're not just being, looking at one specific market and gluing themselves to that particular niche. No, they're looking at all markets and they're paving the way, if not already paving the way, for everything to be interoperable not just what is on Web 2, but especially with what's going on with Web 3. Last but not least, I want to show you guys, for instance, this right here. And of course, this is straight from CoinMarketCap. And if anything, I want you to understand this right here. And, we mention it here quite a bit. The circulating supply of Bitcoin. When you compare that to the likes of, for instance, Quant, Bitcoin has a bigger circulating supply. I believe Quant is roughly in the 14 million area. But here's another thing I want to point out. Let's look at the all-time, right? This is why I believe Quant is a second chance at Bitcoin, right? Not specifically as in BTC, but if you want to look at it from the perspective of, the people who basically came into Bitcoin, right? Roughly in 2013. Some people got in at 2010, don't get me wrong, for $5. But the big wave of people came in at roughly $100, right? So let's say, for instance, summer 2013, right below $100. And then this wave, right? Think about this. Now, if anything, if you're the hardcore Quant fans of our channel, I highly recommend you watching that particular Bitcoin thumbnail video that we did where it talks about these 4-year cycles. Here's the proof. So watch this. So from there to here, that's 4 years. Look at that big leap, right? And if anything, look at this on top of it. Another 4 years right here. So again, start here, roughly, under $100, summer 2013. Then we go to there, for instance, the end of 2017. Huge jump, to say the least, right? But again, about 4 years. Then from there to here, right? To April 2021, roughly another 4 years. Then, of course, on 11/11, this is 11/8, but in reality, 11/11 is when we got to 69K. Another big jump. My thing is this. Enough data is to show that we're going to have the start of the next, for instance, bull run. It's going to start. And it's going to start, in my humble opinion, at the end of the first quarter of 2023. There's enough data to show that. I know that particular video didn't get a lot of views, but again, go to our video section, click on the one and only one we talk about for specifically Bitcoin. It will give you a broader perspective of how these 4-year cycles work. And if anything, I'm sticking with it because, again, to me, it simply makes sense. I base it on data and history of these 4-year cycles. In closing, I want to state this. I'll come back into the frame. And that is Bitcoin, or I should say crypto, has had the label for the longest time, and that is it's a hedge against inflation. That could be further more from the truth. Bitcoin, or I should say crypto in general, was a hedge against money printing. Okay? Look at where the US dollar is right now. This whole talk about, for instance, the dollar collapsing, right, could very well be inevitable. I'm not rooting for that, but let's face it, I got to be real about that. I am personally investing into real world use case digital assets, XRP, XLM, XDC, Quant, right? Those are some of my top ones for the ISOs. Why? They're backed by precious metals, XRP, gold, XLM, silver. You get the gist of where I'm going with here. And Quant, if anything, connects all of that, connects all of Web 2, all of Web 3, and so on. To me, like I mentioned before, they're literally a monopoly. I don't see another one coming around soon to compete with them. With that said, that makes me that much more bullish. And if anything, recognizing that this Quant QNT is truly our second chance at Bitcoin, but in the form of QNT. So with that said, everybody, hopefully you enjoyed our particular content and coverage of Quant. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification if you haven't done so already. Thanks again for watching. May you all have a blessed day, and we'll see you on the next one.